live on ABC's KMET 1490am.com. Your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the telephone line, I welcome to the program legendary Hall of Fame drummer. He's played with bands called Small Faces, The Who, The Law, The Jones Gang. I welcome in the legendary Kenney Jones. Kenny, Brian C., honored to have you this afternoon.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, our pleasure. Kenny, I want to begin by going back to the early 1960s. You're a teenager in Stepney at the pub known as the British Prince. That's where you were given the opportunity to play with an actual band for the very first time, correct?
That's correct. It was a jazz band, and I was there just picking up some tips from the drummer. I was only 13 years old, and I couldn't believe it. And he asked me to sit in and play the drums. And the guys, when I sat down his drum kit, they all stood up. I couldn't believe it. They all looked like giants to me, the band. And then they counted it in. It sounded like, it's like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, like a jazz song. But it sounded like, wow. It's like all in slow motion. And then I was playing with a band. The first time I ever played with anyone, I was in my element. I loved it.
Yeah, and the first time playing with the band, and it must have felt so good, showcasing your skill for the first time. You were free to do what you wanted to do, right? It must have felt so good.
Yeah, it felt great. I mean, when I finished the song, I sat down and I was shaking like a leaf. And the barman came over to me and said, Kenny, that was fantastic. That was great. He said, are you in a band? I said, no, I'm forming a band right now. He said, oh, my brother's has just taken up a guitar. He's bought a guitar 2 weeks ago. Should I bring him down next week? I said, yeah, great. And he brought him down. And in through the door the following week walks Ronnie Lane, his brother. That's how we met.
Wow, and also around 1963, I believe you also met Steve Marriott, correct? You guys formed a relationship. You both had love for rhythm and blues music, correct?
That's correct. What happened was Ronnie Lane decided he didn't want to play lead guitar anymore. He wanted to play bass. So he went to the only shop in the East End of London that I bought my drum kit, and he bought his guitar to buy a bass. And this young guy was serving on a Saturday morning part-time, and this guy came up and said, oh, quite a cocky guy, said, how can I help him? I said, he wants to buy a bass. And so they went off to try out basses. And I, out of the corner of my eye, saw a drum kit, so I sat there and I played on the drums. And Ronnie started to play bass. And this guy picked up a guitar and started playing. The three of us were playing, and that was Steve Marriott.
Amazing. And the first band, reading about your career, the first band that you formed was called The Outcasts. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, first band we had was called The Outcasts. And we did some gigs in that. That's before Steve was in the band.
Okay, and then from 65 to 69, you formed a band known as Small Faces.
That's correct.
Talk a little bit about Small Faces. How did the idea come to form this band? Talk about the beginnings of Small Faces.
Well, the beginning was we built up a following in a London club just in Leicester Square, quite a popular club, and we built up a residence there for 6 weeks. And of course, word got out and went around the music business. And Don Arden sent his right-hand man to try to see what we were like. He said, look, Don Arden wants to sign you. And so that's Sharon Arden's dad, and so we said, okay. So we went up to his office literally 2 days later, and then we just got along great. He's a bit of an opera singer, and he's like a big teddy bear, really. And he's a nice guy. So we kind of, I'm cutting a long story short here. You can read my book and it'll be in there, all the ins and outs of what it went on.
And the original members of Small Faces were yourself, Lane, Steve Marriott, Jimmy Winston, correct?
That's correct. Jimmy Winston was his mum and dad had a pub, so that's why we got him in the band. Because his mum and dad had a pub where we could rehearse. I mean, Jimmy really couldn't play much at that time, and he's also a lot taller than us. he really didn't fit, to be honest. But he was a lovely guy. And so he didn't last long in the formation of the small faces. So we eventually got Ian McLagan into the band, who was playing with Boz and the Boz people at the time, and he fitted in just fantastic. He's great on the Hammond organ, so it added another dimension of sound and quality to the band.
Yeah, and I read an article way back in '68. It was, I believe, an article in The Observer, and they listed as the release of Ogden's Nut Gone Flake as one of the top British albums of all time. Do you agree with that accolade?
I certainly do. I mean, it's been in the top 100 or 50 best albums of all time for years, and it's one of the films. I'm actually in the process of making a full-length animation film about Ogden's and the story behind Ogden's.
Oh, that's so cool. And then so that was '68, '69. From reading the history of the band, '69, Marriott, who was vocalist guitarist, decided to leave, and then Rod Stewart was recruited. Correct?
Well, indirectly, the band broke up because Steve Marriott went off and formed Humble Pie, and the three of us didn't know what we were doing, so we were quite friendly with the Stones, and they said, well, look, if you want somewhere to rehearse, we've got a soundproof place so you can go and have a rehearse in there, in the East End of London. So we got together once a week and started to play. And then Ronnie Lane brought down his one week, he brought down his new next-door neighbour, and that was Ronnie Wood. And Ronnie Wood was playing bass at that time with the Jeff Beck band, and he wanted to play lead guitar. So Ronnie was playing lead guitar with us for a bit, just jamming. And then a couple of weeks later, he brought down his bass mate, and that was Rod Stewart. And we didn't know what direction we were going to go, so we all got along great, and I asked Rod to join the band, because we didn't have a proper singer, because, I mean, everyone tried to sing. Ronnie had a great voice, Ronnie Lane. And everyone, after the powerful voice of Steve Marriott, you really missed it. And then I was looking at Rod, sitting on the amplifiers, watching us, and I said, Rod, why don't you join the band? He said, oh, do you think everyone will let me? I said, yeah, of course. And so, yeah, and that's his history. He joined the band, and it was great. So that was the start of the Faces. There was nothing small about us then, because Rod and Ronnie were a little bit taller than us.
Yeah, and I want to remind the audience here that, because some of them may not realize that it was Rod Stewart really broke in with your band. He really did. You really broke in, Rod Stewart.
That's right. I mean, we toured America. We never ever toured America in the small faces, but we headed straight to America when we formed the Faces, and we ended up. Americans just really loved us and adopted us, and word spread from one city to another. You played New York, and by the time we got to Boston, or those cities, the word got around. So, we were greeted with open arms, and we really enjoyed it. The Vietnam War was on at that time, so lots of GIs around at the time.
And that the '70s, mid '70s, that was a period that early '70s, mid '70s, that was a period that Rod Stewart was performing with Faces, but he was also had a solo career. So from reading the history of the band, was that a little bit of a conflict of interest at that time?
Well, no, there was enough to go around. I mean, to be honest, Rod had signed a solo deal, and it was just luckily, the boss of Mercury Records and the boss of Warner Brothers knew each other quite well, so we worked out that Rod could still make solo albums and be in the Faces. So it worked like hand in glove. It's no problem.
Now, what I did, Kenny, I did some digging, and I found a solo of yours, which you performed brilliantly. It was with Faces, that I want to play here, okay?
Okay.
Let's hear the legendary Kenney Jones. That's great stuff. You just heard the legendary Kenney Jones. That was with Faces, and Rod Stewart was the vocalist. Uh, on that clip. I mean, they really don't make drummers like that anymore. Single pedal you were using, I believe, right, Kenny?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, that's like an old track now. I mean, there's a track called "Losing You," and there was a drum break in the middle. It's only supposed to be a drum break, and it ended up it turned itself into a drum solo. It got longer and longer and longer, and I can do it much better than that.
I mean, it sounded fantastic. Let's go over and talk a little bit about the Who. Keith Moon, the original drummer of the Who, tragically passes away. And from what I understand, the day prior to his passing, you had a meeting or you were at a party with Keith Moon, correct?
Yes, what it was the premiere of Paul McCartney's Buddy Holly film that he was the producer of. The premiere of it was, I just got back from the States, so I went straight to the premiere. The premiere was, when you go to a premiere, you go to see the film, and then you have the premiere parties afterwards. Well, this is the other way around. We went to the party before we saw the film. So Keith and I were talking about the bands I was forming at the time, and he was telling me how he's not taking any drugs anymore, and he's not drinking. And I said, "Oh, great, you look great, Keith." And they had a great chat about that. He said, "Because if I take any drugs, if I drink, I get violently ill." So he said, "I don't drink at all." And so we went to see the film after the party. It's about 2:00 in the morning when it finished. I said goodbye to Keith. Went home, and he went home. And next morning, I put the TV on, and the news came on, and it said Keith Moon's been found dead in his flat in London of a drug overdose. I thought, no, he's pulling a prank. He's always been pranking, telling jokes and whatever, messing about. And this ended up being true. He went home, took his nighttime pill, and then went to bed and slept for a couple of hours and woke up and thought it was morning and took his morning pill. When you take these pills that close together, it slows your heart down. And that's what happened. It's an accidental drug overdose. And I wish he was still with us today. Because in my opinion, there's only one drummer for the Who, and that's Keith Moon.
Yeah, I mean, and that leads me to my next question. Those are big shoes to fill. What was your reaction when you got offered the role?
Well, I said, at first I said I can't do it because I'm just forming a band, and we just had a sign with Atlantic Records, and then his manager, Bill Curtis, said, "Look, Pete's coming into the office a bit later. Come and have a." And I said, "Great, no problem." So we chatted for about 2 hours, and then Pete just turned and said, "You've got to join the band. You're one of us. You're more than the rest of us." And I said, "Look, my band is in London. It's half American, half English. They're in London today, so I'll go back and have a chat with them, see how the land lies." And I went back and I saw my band. And I said, "Look, you won't believe this, but I've been asked to join the Who." And they said, "Kenny, you've got to do it. It's the right thing to do." Then that's what I joined the Who. I said, "It's right, their blessing." And I went, joined the Who, and I didn't think about what shoes I was in. I was just, because Pete said, "Look, we now have something really, we can go down another route and we can do all kinds of stuff, And I said, "Okay, great." We never did do anything new. We ended up doing the same old songs, which is what the fans want. They want to listen to the Who songs. So I said, "Look, I'm not copying Keith Moon, not in a million years." I said, "I'm a straight drummer. I play completely different." I said, "But the thing is, there's certain fills that I like that Keith plays, that I'll try and respectfully do them as best I could." And that's why I did it. I said, "I'm not going to copy Keith Moon." I was being nuts to copy Keith Moon.
Right. So that was the agreement. You wanted to perform, your own style of play.
Well, I only play me, and that's it. I don't mimic other people. I'm not going to do that. So, I didn't. Luckily, because I was in the Faces and still very well known at that time, the fans seemed to accept me very quickly. And Keith Moon had only been dead, literally a couple of months. And so, and I found myself sitting in his shoes behind the drum kit, and the rest of the band were great. The Small Faces and the Who toured a lot around England and Europe, Australia, New Zealand, quite extensively, and so we knew each other quite well. So it was like being in one band anyway. So I felt comfortable straight away. The only hard thing was learning all the Who songs in 10 days.
Yeah, and also, what I thought about the other day, I was listening to some of the early Who records, 81, 82. As you know, Kenny, you were in the business. The music was changing during that period of time. It was becoming very pop, very pop oriented. So, my feeling is that Pete Townsend made the right decision in bringing you in at the time, because you gave the Who in the early 80s that pop feel of music with your play.
Well, I like to think so. I mean, don't forget. It's Entwistle and I used to do lots of sessions together, and I knew I used to do a lot of demos with Pete for the Who before I joined the band. So, we were each other. So things like You Better, You Bet, songs like that, they weren't till this song, because I'm a drummer, it's a bit different style. Roger got a bit spooky a bit sometimes. It's something we're playing at a big stadium, and suddenly look around and see me and the Keith Moon. So, that's important.
Yeah, and I also heard you say that the most exciting band that you ever played for in your career was the Who, but it was also the hardest band because learning the songs were a little difficult. Is that fair to say?
Well, it's difficult. There were kind of different songs that I've been used to. So, and they were very interesting for me to play. So I got my teeth stuck into them, and I enjoyed playing them. But the excitement of them was fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
I apologize. I think we're losing connection. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
And Kenny, talk a little bit, if you can. We have about 4 minutes left. Talk a little bit about the band The Law and then the Jones Gang.
Right. Well, I did 10 years roughly with the Who. And then I met Paul Rodgers, which I knew very well, and I knew that the Who were coming to an end. After Entwistle was going down a different. Everyone was doing solo stuff, and so Paul Rodgers and I formed a band called The Law. I think we had a number 2 hit in America with "Laying Down the Law" song, and that was a great band. Paul had a fantastic voice, still has, and so that was nice to go through. Then I formed my own band called the Jones Gang. I hate the name of the Jones Gang. It sounds like a country and western band, but it's kind of stuck with us. But it's a great band to play, and we do most of the songs. Some of the songs are all the bands I've been in. Don't forget, in between all this, I've been playing with the Faces and stuff like that. We've got, and also re-releasing records. Funny enough, Rod Stewart and Ronnie Wood and myself are working together on our back catalogue at the moment, and we're doing some stuff in the studio. Trying to go full circle.
Yeah, amazing. And for my listening audience, the website, you can go on to KenneyJones.com and check out the website and read about the history and upcoming events. Fantastic website. Kenny, 2012, big year, pinnacle, I would say, in your career. You became a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I know. When we were enrolled into the Rock Hall of Fame, twice in one go, once for the small faces and once for the faces. So it was a huge honour. I mean, so it was a big deal. So, unfortunately, Steve Marriott will be there, or Ronnie Lane, that passed away. But Mac is still alive then. So we went in 2012, we went to pick up our award, and I took Steve Marriott's daughter, and she gave a little speech, which is really nice. And so we received the award, and we're very proud of that award.
Yeah, I mean that, you can say, see, no one can ever take that away. You are an elite Hall of Famer. So, I mean, that's a prestigious honor. So no one can ever take that away. And I have a couple of minutes left. I know you participated in the 1983 Live Aid. Can you share a story about that time in your life?
Yes, in 1985, the Who, Bob Geldof came to us and said he's doing this charity gig, and would we do it? We all said, yeah, no problem, don't worry. So, and that was amazing. We did that. I mean, it was played live around the world. I mean, I think at that time it was like 3 billion people or 4 billion people. Most I've ever played to in one go. And so Roger, when he sang the lyrics, why don't you all fade away? The satellite broke down, and we faded away for a couple of minutes.
Oh, man. So what do you have upcoming? I know you mentioned you have a film you're working on. What else is upcoming in your life?
Well, at the moment, as I said, Ronnie Wood and Rod Stewart and myself are working on our back catalogue, and we're also hopefully we're doing some. Well, we are doing some new stuff as well. Not that we're reforming the band, but it's our 50th. 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, it's our 50th anniversary of the band, and we were going to go out and celebrate and do a couple of gigs and God knows what. And then the pandemic happened, and that killed that for a bit. So it's still on the cards, and we're still trying to do something. It'll be our 52nd anniversary, I think.
Amazing. And final question, before we say goodbye, give us a story maybe no one has heard yet. Early 70s stories. You must have so many. That early 70s story with the Faces that maybe no one has heard yet.
Oh God, I don't know. I mean, there's so many.
Give us a funny story. Any funny story or?
One of the things I like is when we used to play Los Angeles, we stayed in a hotel called the Hyatt House, and because we used to cause riots, and so they renamed it the Riot House.
I'm sorry, I lost that part.
Oh, so it became called the Hyatt House. It got nicknamed the Riot House. So we all
the Riot
House. TVs out the windows, parties all night. You name it. That's what we got up to. And we were a good fun band, though.
A lot of drinking, a lot of ladies, huh?
Yes, you said it in one go. My liver will never be the same.
Hey, listen, I really appreciate your time. It was an honor to speak to you.
And you too. And I say hello to everybody in America, and I wish I was there with you all now.
I'm going to put a little gift in the mail for you for your time, so I really appreciate it. It was really an honor, Kenny.
Oh, it's a real pleasure to speak to you and everybody else there. You too.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, you too. Take care to everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. The legendary Kenney Jones, one of the best all-time drummers. And again, I want to mention the website, KenneyJones.com. Played with Small Faces, The Who in the 80s. and so on. Hall of Fame drummer, thank you for being on. Until next week, happy collecting to all.